right, looks like we are live. Okay, good evening, Australia. Good morning, UK. Hello to everybody in between, all the different time zones. Welcome to those of you who are live viewing. And if you are watching the replay, we need to work on your notifications button, don't we? All right, we have here, welcome to our wonderful guests. We have Paul Cherry, Groundswell Director, and Matthew Evans, who I'm just going to say is founder of Grounded Australia. Now we're here for sorry, I'm just thinking, how do I know that I'm actually live? I'm presuming I am live, because there's nobody chatting. If you are there, can somebody just give us a nod, say, let me know where you are in Australia or the UK or anywhere in the world, and then at least I know that we have some viewers. Tonight is a special night because we will be storytelling, and these stories from both of these gentlemen I haven't even heard. It will be the first time that we listen to them. All right, so we'll start with Paul, but before we do jump on your story, I've got a Groundswell promotional video from 2024, this year. And for anybody that's listening who is unaware of what Groundswell is, here's a little introduction.
Collaboration and sharing of ideas.
It's a kind of a blizzard of information about different regenerative approaches to agriculture.
There's lots on offer for people who, just like me, I want to know what it's all about.
As an educational event, there's nothing really like it. It's on farm, it's in summer, we can go see practical demonstrations of compost, of mob grazing.
What I love is the mix of both inspiration for the bigger movement, but also the really practical, technical details.
I think Groundswell is a really important feature. It's not anything like this in Europe, and it's lovely to see the diversity of people that are here and the level of passion and engagement.
People are just so friendly and so welcoming.
You can sit down next to somebody within 5 minutes. You're having a very interesting conversation. You've never met them before. You don't actually want to go. You want to keep talking.
Yeah, it's kind of like the most inspiring part of the year. So many more opportunities come from it. We found suppliers through here, other farmers, people trying to do research. You know, there's so much potential.
Another reason I like Groundswell and that I like this whole emerging, burgeoning movement of regenerative ag is it's not based on despair. It's based on hope.
Groundswell is a place where there's a lot of...
So I just absolutely love the ending of that, because when I first did the very first documentary and I went on farm and I was on a different farm every day speaking to farmers, my last question was, is there hope? And every single person said yes. And so it just does funny little things to me, that ending. Okay, so the format tonight will be that Paul will start and open up how Groundswell actually entered the cosmos, followed by Matthew, who will then follow up with how Grounded also entered the cosmos. And then we'll open you all up to questions and fire away, because that's what lives are all about, getting you all interacting with us. All right, Paul, over to you.
Well, good morning, Tamzin, Matthew. Good morning, everybody. From a rather grey Hertfordshire, we farm between London and Cambridge, so very much sort of central UK. And I've been farming with my brother and now my son for 40 years now. And we were very conventional, you know, standard sort of plough-based farming for 25 years, really. And then it sort of dawned on us that things were going a bit wrong with our soils, and they were just getting worse and worse. So about 15 years ago, we started well, my brother went off to a show in Kansas called No Till on the Plains, and came back and said, "We're going to go no till." And I thought, "Oh, hang on." But he said, "Well, we'll do it anyway." And I said, "You're mad." And had one of those sort of brotherly conversations. And so we started direct drilling, and it was all fine for a sort of first season, and then things started getting really tough. We're thinking, how the hell do we do this? And everyone else was saying, how the hell do we do this? And there was no sort of support from government, no support from the industry. They didn't really sort of get it. So John said, why don't we just put on a direct drilling show? We'll get all the direct drills to come. We'll get farmers to come, and it'll be fine. And our accountant said, well, you're mad and nobody will come. But anyway, so we plodded on, and my son came back from London at that point. He said, this is something I can really engage with. So back in 2016, we started the first Groundswell. And to our astonishment, we thought we were going to get 100 people. We had 450 people. They were flying in from all over Europe. We just got speakers from America. We had all the drills there. We had a few exhibitors, a couple of barns. It was all sort of very startup, but people were really engaging, and it was like there was this sort of hunger for knowledge that we had no idea was there. And I remember one of our American speakers said, well, look, you've got a great show here, but don't do it every year because there aren't enough speakers, aren't enough good speakers. So of course, the next year we put on 2 days rather than 1 day, and we were awash with there are great speakers. There's great knowledge out there, and there's great sort of desire to share. And so we built on that, and basically every year Groundswell has grown, 30-40% every year, except for COVID. We had 1 year off. Very luckily, we only had 1 year off for COVID. And it's been incredibly exciting, slightly terrifying, but really moving that we've just sort of hit this wave of enthusiasm for what is now regen farming. It's been through so many names. I'm rather reluctant to talk about regen farming as a model, because it'll be something else next year probably. So we started off as a direct drilling show. Then it became sort of sustainable, conservation ag, all these sort of things. We wanted to be regenerative because that feels like we're handing on our land in better condition than we found it. So that's the sort of basis. So yeah, so Groundswell is now this sort of force that we can't really control. Last year we had 8,000 people flying in from all over the world. I mean, all 5 continents. We get politicians, we get royalty. I know you don't understand royalty in Australia, but they come anyway. We get a lot of exhibitors, and we get a huge and really fascinating seam of people who want to help and speak. The speakers are our mainstay, and we can pick and choose who we want, and we get fantastic amount of enthusiasm from people applying to speak. In fact, our speaker applications are open for next year. So if you want to come and do something, then please get in touch. We hold it on the farm here, and we're well located. So it seems to be the sort of the go-to place for people who want to make who are a bit sort of tired of farming in a conventional way, who want to do something different and want to learn from. Maybe it's a bit brave for them to sort of step out of line, so they want to be amongst other people who are doing something interesting with their farms on every single level. This is about soil, it's about shortening supply chains, it's about growing interesting crops, it's about diversity, it's about. So we're open to all comers, but in the meantime, we're just going for it, and it's exciting to see. Matthew's doing something very exciting down in Tasmania. There are numerous shows sort of building on the regen model, if you like, in the UK as well. So it's fun being part of that sort of community, and we really do like that sort of collaboration. It's exciting. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Fantastic, Paul. What a great story. And that sort of segues then into Matthew. How did you come to organise an event like Grounded?
So I applied to be a speaker at Groundswell and couldn't get in. I think you have to get your application in by the deadline is one of the tricks, apparently. No, I was in the UK last year, 2023, and just happened, I was on a family holiday, so I ruined it by going to a thing called Du Bois in northern Wales, which was about 20 k's from where I happened to be staying. I said to my family, oh, it's this sort of farming thing that might be really cool there. But I'd already I'd heard about Groundswell, and that it was one of those things that if you're into farming in a way, you know, if you think farming can be improved, or you think that your systems might, you know, there may be a better way, or there's a newer way, or whatever, or you're just curious, it's one of those places that's really good, safe space. So that's why I wanted to go. So I could only go for one day, and I loved the model of what they were doing, which was having multiple sites at once. Because I've written some books, and when you go to a writers' festival, they don't just have one writer talking, and then everyone watches one other writer talking, and then everyone watches another writer talking. There's like 10 different writers talking at any one time, and so people can make their own mind up about whether they're into science fiction or romantic fantasy or autobiographies, whatever, at a writing festival. And I love the way Groundswell was saying, well, yeah, you can do the same thing there as a farmer. Just because we're farming doesn't mean we all have to sit around a conference listening to the same speaker. And then I'm a chef by trade, and so we're used to hosting people at our farm, and we love the idea of, I guess what we do when we run a restaurant is we give people the moment to come together around a table and to create humanity and create culture, that beautiful moment. And the food is just the excuse. Like to get people to sit around a table and share, and our tables were always sharing with strangers usually, except for during the COVID years. People would share food and have to interact with a total stranger, and this magic happens. And what we like about the Groundswell model seems to have this, and where I guess what I loved about our opportunity to do something on farm was say where the good stuff happens is probably in the line for the toilet. It's probably the person you're standing next to waiting to get a cup of coffee in the morning, right? You can't sell people a ticket to that, right? Because they're not interested. So you have to create the excuse for people to come and gather. And so what we have done is a similar thing in that we have we've got 5 different sites running concurrently where people can make up their own adventure. So I get bored after sitting down for 4 hours. So, I need to go and walk around. So we've got things where there's demonstrations walking around, digging in the soil or looking at, high-tech stuff. Then there's the intense things. But I think that the best thing that's going to happen is that moment when you go up and get the shorthorn, from the big smoker and sit there and have a plate of that next to someone who's got some kind of pulled pork bun or whatever, and sharing a beer and going, oh, so what do you do? Where are you from? How does this work? What are you doing? And that's the special thing that happens. And I think that's what our job is, to create the atmosphere where that beautiful thing has the opportunity to happen. And so the talks, much as and Groundswell has, Paul was exactly right. There are so many great speakers. We've got 60. I was aiming at 20, and I just added them up. There's like 62 or something. And so everyone's bio has to be a lot shorter than it was originally. But they're all amazing, but they're just the reason for people to come. What's actually going to be, I think, hopefully wonderful is the people who come interacting with each other, because that's the thing that we can't replicate. I could try and get a similar group of speakers somewhere else, but it's not. That's not the magic. The alchemy is the attendees creating their own conversations and beautiful stuff.
You're so right. We put all our main talks out on YouTube, on our Groundswell YouTube channel. So we're trying to create a sort of library of useful information on YouTube. And people say, well, why do you do that? It means people won't come to Groundswell. They come because on YouTube you can't ask the question. On YouTube you don't eat amazing food. You know, on YouTube, you don't meet the person in the queue for a cup of coffee, or you don't dance with them until midnight on the Wednesday night. You know, it is. We're just trying to create a place where people really want to be. I've been to so many agricultural shows in my life where I've come away thinking, I don't really like the industry. I don't like being sold stuff that I can't afford. I sort of come home feeling sort of faintly dejected. It's been a day where people have been trying to sell me stuff. And you come to Groundswell, or probably Grounded, and so many of these shows now, where you become inspired, you get ideas. You know, it really is that sort of festival of ideas. You eat amazing food and you meet amazing people. What could be better than that? And you come home sort of enlightened. I was on the train. I met two lots of farmers last week who both had changed everything they do on their farms because of trips to Groundswell. I can't tell you how moving that is. It's unbelievably moving. Even watching that video slightly makes me well up. That was actually the 23 video, not the 24 Tamzin. It doesn't matter. You can all watch any of them, really. But it's just great to see it all sort of there on the screen. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, one of the things you said right at the end when you're doing your telling us about how you started it and what it does was that word hope. And I hadn't realised until I was writing to all our speakers that that's what we're, I guess, trying to do. Whether it's, and as you say, there's lots of amazing people doing really cool things all over the world and all over Australia. There's really people getting into this space. Because I think farmers are often we're often the punching bag for the world's problems and never considered the solution. But I see farming and growing food as the ultimate optimistic act, because you don't plant a seed, you don't breed an animal unless you believe in a future. You have to believe that there is a place to go. And so it's actually, despite, and I don't know what the UK is like, we have massive mental health issues with farmers in Australia. A lot of it's from isolation, and but actually the thing that we do is actually optimistic. And I think we sometimes forget that when you read the stories about soil loss or carbon emissions or deforestation or whatever it is. And I think that what's lovely about these events happening all over the world more and more, but probably a lot of the genesis is this wonderful Groundswell, is that we're saying, hang on, no, we're doing a lot of really good stuff. We're doing amazing stuff. And some people have been doing it for 60 years. Some of us have got into it in the last decade. Some other people want to get into it tomorrow. But farming can be really healing to us as people, healing to our communities, and healing to our environment. And I think that's that word hope, Paul. I think that was you really nailed it there.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. I think and it's so interesting that the same issues we were talking before we came on stream, that at times the same issues are relevant all over the world. We all get locked up in our local stuff, but the issues are absolutely the same. All the ones you mentioned there. So yeah, we can build on that.
We do have a question from Rochelle. Paul, what are some learnings from all your experience that you could pass on to Matthew in his 11th hour before our Aussie event? Good question, Rochelle.
Yeah, if only Paul and I had met, 6 months ago. I have actually met Paul's brother John and his your son Alex, I think, and and niece Eliza. So I have met some cherries, but today's my first day with Paul. So give me some advice.
Yeah, I've got the whole bunch now. Don't lose faith. Keep everyone. It'll be a great show. It'll be a great show. People make the show. You know that, and they will come. And it doesn't matter about the weather. It doesn't matter about give them great food, give them great music, give them other stuff to so they're not just listening. You've got it. You know this already, but it's about making a festival environment. I think is probably the secret. And my son Alex has done it in Spaceville. And I'm really proud of what he's done.
Yeah. Well, I bought some bunting. Is that enough, Paul?
Yeah, big long bar. Bring your guitar out. Yeah. So
that'll put people off. I get the guitar out.
Are there still tickets available, Matthew?
Yeah, we've got yes, probably there's a handful of tickets available. Yeah, so it's I think some of the one-day ones are booked out. So because we've got the same speakers on 2 days, but one of the days has more bookings for some reason. So I think we're pretty close to capacity on that. And the 2-day tickets, it's sort of better value. And what I like about it is that most of our speakers speak on 2 days. So because you've got to choose each day, you might choose to miss one person you really want to hear one day, but then you can hear them the next. There's that kind of thing going on. But yeah, I think we've got almost enough people on the farm for my neighbours' sake, but from our sake, yeah, we could probably fit another 20.
Like you, Matthew, we're very lucky being on farm, so we call them safaris. So, there'll be a pond safari or a hedgerow safari or a dung beetle safari or a truffle safari, and people. So it's not just sitting on your bum, looking at people speaking and all the other things. You can actually get out and see live, real experts talking about their special subject, in real conditions. So actually groveling around in a cowpat, finding dung beetles, and you'd be amazed. I knew nothing about dung beetles I didn't even know we had them until our first Groundswell, And you've got these amazing vets with plastic gloves rustling around finding dung beetles in our cowpats. And, people are utterly gripped, or fungus, or bird watching, or having the space is really important, and it gets people off site and gives them a bit of exercise. And another way where you're walking along to one of these safaris and you'll inevitably be talking to somebody fascinating you're walking along with. So it's we're definitely very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those defining features is, I'm now learning why, because I went to the UK and I went to your festival and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. They've got all this stuff in the middle of a paddock and it's great. You can walk around, you can see all this stuff. Why don't we do that? And now 6 days out, I now know why, when it's like, oh, how do you run the power? How do you do, there's no infrastructure, there's nothing here, and you just sort of have to build it. And we're it's very hilly country around here, so we don't even have a car park. So that, until about 4 days ago, we had there was no access. A neighbour offered us a paddock, but we had no access because there was a Telstra, the telecommunications cable running right through the middle of where we needed to put the road in. And I'm like, wow, that's why no one does this, because this is really complicated. But I think the payoff is that you're on site. You're not in a conference centre talking about stuff. It's was it Elvis Costello was sort of saying that talking about music is like dancing about poetry, and that idea that talking about farming is kind of all very well, but it makes so much more sense when someone's digging in the soil in front of you, or someone's looking at leaves and actually demonstrating something in front of you. And I think that's the beauty of being on farm. It's a challenge to run it, and I can't imagine how you guys do it. But I think there's a payoff for the participant.
We do have another question. So Margot can't attend this year, but is it likely to be an ongoing event? This is the Grounded event.
Look, people tell me, look, I haven't really suffered. I haven't given birth or anything like that, so I don't really know pain. But I know some women who've given birth who have then gone through it again, and after a period of recovery. So now's not perhaps the time to ask. The intention is to do it again, yes. And because we are we're in the southernmost shire in Australia, so we're a long way from anywhere. We're on an island. We're a long way from, even a lot of the arable. There's no arable land near us. So we have an idea that what we would like to do is have this as a concept that is movable, and we have a site that we're looking at in Victoria. We've also been looking a little bit in southern Queensland and also a breakout event in Western Australia to be able to take it on the road. So have a similar concept that would have, I guess, a different emphasis depending on where it was, so that people can drive, can camp, can immerse themselves in it without having to cross the nation every time. And so, yes, we would like to host it here again, but I don't know that it would be every year here.
I think you'll get it. I think you'll be addicted. 10 days time, you'll be getting the itch.
Yeah, well, I hope my wife's not listening, because she's got a few things to say. We moved to this island to have a quiet life 16 years ago, and I swear my Tasmanian friends think I should move back to Sydney where I used to live, because then they see more of me. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got another question. These are good questions. Could you ask how much political interest is there in the event? And can you, Matthew, let folks know Helen Redbanks from UK is coming too on a session with me? I'm not sure what the session is, but
yeah. So we've got James. So we've got 8 international speakers. So someone said it was ambitious, which I find really unnerving, because wasn't trying to be ambitious, but I just wanted to have, I guess, in that same sense that when you have a music festival, you have your headline acts, and then you have your local acts, and everyone comes to see the headline act and then realizes actually there's someone local that blew their mind. I mean, that's kind of like that's the way I sort of was framing it. And so we approached James and Helen Rebanks from the UK. So James, the Hurdy shepherd, and Helen, his wife. So they're coming out from the UK. We've got a guy named Dan Kittredge out of the US. So and a couple of New Zealanders, 3 people from New Zealand coming out, some scientists and a viticulturalist and a food systems expert. So what we're trying to do, I guess, is say, there's these people who are really brilliant, would be great to bring here. And someone like Helen is really interesting in that, her book is the Farmer's Wife, and it's not the book that I probably would have picked up just out, but because she was coming, I was like, oh I should read this, and I loved it. I was suddenly like, oh my, it gave me this window into this world that I didn't know or couldn't imagine. And so we've got, I guess, what we're trying to do is have everything from sort of that, like who looks after the farm. We love a solo hero. The farmer, or whoever, the hero conquering the world. But there's always someone putting meals on the table. There's always someone, holding stuff together. And the Rebanks, house, I think it's a lot of Helen's doing a lot of that. And so we've got people sort of saying, well, hang on, what are the other roles in farming? If you want a farm that's sustainable, you can't just, be out there battling the elements all the time without someone actually cooking dinner and making sure, everyone is, has clean clothes. We've also got, high-tech drones, and we've got, I guess that everything from the latest in measuring leaf moisture, using dendrometers, which I think I didn't even know what it was until recently. So you water your plants when the plant needs it, not when the soil is telling you, but when the plant says it needs to be watered, right through to ancient wisdom. Political interest, I would say it's not particularly high. We've got some numbers where it's going to be worth $800,000 or something to the state in terms of increased benefit, and there has been a little bit of assistance from the state government, but not huge amounts. I think we're a little bit fringe for what they often think about. We've had great support from the university, which I think is really beautiful, because what we want to do, we believe in, I guess, wisdom, and we've got a guy who lives up the road here, and he's, his lineage goes back, in Tasmania 43,000 years or 60,000 years or whatever, and he's going to talk about landscapes from that sort of that point of view. And then we've got people from the university. And what we love is that we can take the best of everything and say, well, how does that apply to this landscape, and how can we use that knowledge, it's all knowledge, and make things better. Political interests are, the agriculture minister is sending a representative from our state. So, I'm really pleased about that. And he's an ex-farmer, so I think he'll get a lot out of it. So I know he's coming to one of the days. I'm not sure if he's coming to the event generally, though.
If it's any help, I would say politicians they won't come in years 1 and 2, but as the thing gains traction, they'll realise that there's a force that they need to be interested in, and certainly our experience is that sort of probably in the last 4 years we always get the Secretary of State for Environment for our so our big farming ministers, they always come. In fact, some of the best environmental schemes have been born at Groundswell. I think where they meet, that we've got exhibitors who are showing cover crops and all the environmental stuff that's going on. And I've been with the farming ministers when they've been sort of exposed to all that stuff, and you can see them thinking, actually, this is more than just a sort of fringe thing. So it does become and they need to be here, and they understand that. You have to be bold. You have to invite them. You have to tell them they need to be there as well. They don't just come. And they won't expect to pay, obviously. But I wouldn't be shy about letting them know it's happening.
Yeah. So we're hoping our local, the federal agriculture minister will come. She's actually our local member, so that's maybe a bit of more of a chance. But I guess for maybe you found this. People think it's all kumbaya circles or something, that we're all just dancing around fires naked and planting things by the full moon or something, and don't realise that this is actually a lot of really people with big brains who are testing out ideas in the real world. And yes, some people might be planting things by the full moon, but they might have a really good, sound reason why that they believe that's working in their system. But I think, and I think that's part of it. Is this? There is perceptions, and I think that'll probably change over time. That this is, it actually is real people just trying to have a crack at doing something a bit better. And how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, not all of our attendees are farmers by any means, but every year I'm amazed, and not all the farmers come every year. It's not as though we've got a lot of people who do come every year, but not all of them do, because they get the idea and they take it home. But I do find every year I've sort of come across a farmer friend who I would never normally expect to see at Groundswell. They almost look sort of faintly embarrassed and kind of say, "Oh well, I've only come to just sort of see what's going on and get a few ideas." Well, that's fantastic. If you're getting one grain of an idea, then our job is done. So it's getting into the mainstream is really important. Yeah, we get a very broad brush of from the great estates to the tiniest smallholding. They're all there. And the other exciting thing for us is, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but the average age of farmers is well north of 60, and our demographic is way down in the 30s. So we've got sons and daughters dragging their parents along, or indeed parents dragging their sons and daughters along. It's a very different sort of vibe from the average sort of farming show, if you like.
Yeah, and that goes back to that idea of hope, because it's the future. There is so many good things going on, and that, and I'm sure it happens around you. It happens around here, where if farmers don't like to be told they're bad farmers, same way you can't tell someone they're a bad driver or a bad lover, or a bad parent. Doesn't go down that well. But I think if you scratch it a little bit, people will say, yeah, it's not quite as good as it was. And most of us want to do a better job. Most of us want to leave it a little bit better than we found it, or maybe a lot better than we found it. And give them that opportunity. And I think we see that a lot here in Australia as well, that sort of different demographic at certain events where people are saying, no, this is the future. Yes, farming gets blamed for lots of things because we didn't do it necessarily right in terms of the environment or we might have or topsoil loss or whatever. But now we know better, and we know what mistakes we've made. And I see a lot of these events as saying, well, okay, what can we learn from the fact that we're feeding 8 billion people? What have we learned about land use that we can take into the next 100, 500 years so we can feed 8 billion, whatever, 10 billion people and not bugger up the land that feeds us?
Yeah, you're so right. You are so right. It's and from a commercial perspective, farming is a tough business financially. I mean, especially over here, we've lost our subsidies. So farmers are, having to sort of readjust the way they think about yields and machinery and fixed costs, and so it's breaking out of the old industrial model, if you like, and just being a bit more open-minded about sort of perhaps changing the way they think and do.
Right, I've just asked everybody if there's any more questions. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time out, one in the evening, one in the morning. I always think that's quite funny. I just want to touch on, just before we do finish, the demographic thing. With Paul asked me about who was my audience with Farming Revolution. And if you look at the analytics, it's 80% males, but it's each age group is the same amount. It's quite universal across the board, which I thought I would be sort of appealing to my age and older. But no, the younger folk are definitely interested in coming through and want to learn as well. So yeah, that matches up exactly with what you were saying, Paul, which is good.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, and I think our event skews, well, I don't know the age of people because we don't record that, but we've got something like 80% farmers, and probably skews more female than your average farming conference, I would guess. But we'll have to see the analytics on that. It's interesting who gets attracted to different things, I guess. And we have a small audience. We haven't, we're just going out through our own little channels and contacting people. So there must be a lot of people out there who don't know about it, who we might be able to reach in future years.
Yeah.
I do have one more question. Actually, I missed it before. We always find it challenging to fund events, and a big stress the bigger that they get. What's been your main source of funding?
Rightio. Paul, you answer that one.
We've always had sponsors. We're very careful about who we let sponsor. We get a lot of offers sponsorship, and we don't really want some of them. So we've not been shy about charging a proper ticket price. Business conferences are expensive to put on, and if people want to come, they will. I'm afraid they're going to have to pay. And equally, if they want an excuse to not come, they'll say, "Well, it's too expensive." Well, okay, don't come. It's quite simple. But so we charge. Matthew, I see you're charging proper money. It's what it's worth. It's what it's worth. So we charge our exhibitors, we charge our attendees, we charge a little bit comes from all the food concessions and the bar and everything. But I'm afraid if people want a quality event, they're going to have to pay. And I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yeah, we've got a similar model that we actually, our main funder would be the federal government. We've got a grant that we applied for. And that's to support regional communities, and then our main, we've got sponsors, like Thankful for Farmers, Stone and Wood, beer, sort of big sponsors, and then a lot of small funders under that who have helped. So, but I'd say majority for us is ticket. The majority funding would be ticket sales. more than other funds. But yeah, I don't think you could put this event on without some kind of sponsorship or grant money. It's really not viable to be able to, it would be too much for ticket holders to pay, and I don't think they would see the value, because you can't, they don't realize how much it costs to put up a tent. I didn't.
You mentioned power. You mentioned, the production costs are horrendously high, and they're getting worse and worse. And so you've got to be, it's got to be viable, or else it'll fail. It won't. It'll lose its energy, and you'll lose your energy. So I'm afraid it's important to and pricing is very difficult, but it's just one of those things. A quality event, people will come, and they'll come next year as well.
So I asked a friend who is a business manager who'd run some agricultural events before, who's now retired, in January this year when I had the idea. She was the first person I spoke to, and she said, Matthew, you decide two things. One, how much money you're willing to lose, and upfront, that's your first decision. And your second thing, how many people? I said 300. She said, right, do 100 and decide you never ever want to do it again, because it'll just about kill you. And those two bits of advice every day, I remember. Someone, that idea, hope you're not doing it to make money. Well, that we're succeeding at that. That's not the point, though. The point is to run a really good event and to ideally not lose money. And it does seem sometimes you look at the ticket price and you go, guys, it's expensive, but it's, no one's getting rich out of this. But how do you put on a beautiful event with, 60 speakers, 8 internationals, people from all over Australia, and really provide something? Well, it has a cost, and I'd love to make it free, but then it's not sustainable, and it's just like farming. Unless it's sustainable, then it's it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. Rochelle has said huge gratitude to both of you for taking the risk and putting the energy required to host such incredible events. We hosted an event at the beginning of this year, and it is exhausting. So thank you both, and hopefully you will both continue. And Paul, when is your next event?
So we're on the 2nd and 3rd of July, 25. So we've moved it back a week. So we're after Glastonbury, not before. That's an important moment in our lives. So yeah, everybody's very welcome. Have a look at the website, groundswellag.com. We look forward to meeting lots of you.
It's an absolute cracker. There's lots of Australians heading over there. I was on a bus. I got a taxi to the site with a Tasmanian seed producer who's actually coming to our festival now. But yeah, it was just so amazing. Just the people on the bus ride to the festival, or there was it's like a taxi bus, were like that was an amazing crowd of people before I even got to the site. So even if you don't get a ticket, just go backwards and forwards to the day. You'll meet some amazing people.
Thanks, Matthew. And, good luck with your show next week.
Thank you so much, Paul. Lovely to meet you online. Hopefully see you here or there one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamzin. See ya.
Bye-bye.